I grew up in a middle-class family in Ohio with my parents Robert and Linda and my younger sister Sarah. My dad, Robert, worked as a regional manager for a manufacturing company, making decent money but always complaining about not having enough. My mom, Linda, was a part-time bookkeeper who handled the family finances with an iron fist. Sarah was the golden child. Straight A's, cheerleader, everything our parents wanted in a daughter. Me? I was Marcus. The disappointment? I was more interested in computers and technology than sports or traditional success metrics my parents valued. From the time I was 12, I was taking apart electronics, building computers from spare parts, and teaching myself programming languages while other kids were playing video games. My parents never understood my passion for technology. When I'd spend hours coding or working on computer projects, my dad would constantly berate me, saying I was wasting my time on nerd nonsense and that I needed to focus on real skills like business or trades that would actually make money. He'd frequently tell me I was lazy, unmotivated, and that I'd never amount to anything if I didn't start taking life seriously. My mom would echo these sentiments, always comparing me unfavorably to Sarah or to other kids in the neighborhood, who were more traditionally successful in sports or academics. The constant criticism and dismissal of my interests created a deep resentment that would fuel my drive for years to come. Despite their lack of support, I excelled in computer science and mathematics throughout high school. I had a natural aptitude for understanding complex systems and solving technical problems that my teachers recognized, even if my parents didn't. I graduated third in my class and received a full scholarship to study computer science at Ohio State University. You'd think my parents would be proud, but instead, my dad made comments about how I was hiding behind books, and that college was just an excuse to avoid real work. He wanted me to skip college and get a job immediately to start contributing to the household finances, completely ignoring the fact that my scholarship meant I wasn't costing them anything for my education. College was where I really began to flourish. I dove deep into software development, network security, and emerging technologies. I spent countless hours in the computer lab, often staying until they kicked me out at closing time. I started freelancing during my sophomore year, building websites and small applications for local businesses. By my junior year, I was making more money from freelance work than most of my classmates made at their part-time jobs. I was seeing the potential for what technology could become, especially as the internet was beginning to really take off in the mid-2000s. I could envision a future where digital solutions would revolutionize how businesses operated, how people communicated, and how commerce would be conducted. During my senior year, I developed a prototype for what would eventually become my flagship product, a comprehensive customer relationship management system specifically designed for small to medium-sized businesses. Traditional CRM systems at the time were expensive, complicated, and designed for large corporations with dedicated IT departments. My system was intuitive, affordable, and could be implemented quickly by businesses without technical expertise. I saw a massive gap in the market and knew I had something special. I spent months refining the software, conducting beta tests with local businesses, and preparing a business plan for what I was convinced could be a revolutionary product. When I graduated in 2007 with honors and a degree in computer science, I was excited to share my business plans with my family. I had job offers from several major tech companies, but I wanted to pursue my entrepreneurial dreams. I had saved money from freelancing, had a solid business plan, and most importantly, I had already secured 3 paying customers who were eager to implement my CRM system. I thought surely my parents would be proud of what I had accomplished and supportive of my ambitions to build something meaningful. I couldn't have been more wrong. When I explained my business idea to my parents, my dad's reaction was immediate and brutal. He called it another one of your fantasy projects and said I was being irresponsible by turning down stable job offers to chase pipe dreams. He told me I was naive to think I could compete with established companies and that I'd be bankrupt within 6 months. My mom was equally dismissive, focusing on the financial risk and questioning why I couldn't just get a normal job like everyone else. They made it clear that they thought I was making a huge mistake and that they wouldn't support my decision in any way, financially or emotionally. The conversation escalated when I explained that I wanted to work from home initially to keep overhead costs low while I built the business. My dad exploded, saying he wouldn't tolerate having a lazy freeloader living in his house while pursuing unrealistic dreams. He demanded that I either take one of the job offers and start paying rent or find somewhere else to live. When I tried to explain that several established businesses were already interested in my product and that I had a realistic path to profitability, he dismissed it entirely. The final blow came when he looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're 22 years old, Marcus, and you're still living in a fantasy world. You're nothing but a low-life dreamer who needs to grow up and face reality. I'm embarrassed to tell people what my son is doing with his life." Those words hit me like a physical blow. After years of criticism and dismissal, this felt like the ultimate rejection. My own father had called me a lowlife for wanting to build something innovative and meaningful. I looked to my mom for support, but she just nodded in agreement with my dad's assessment. Even Sarah, who I thought might understand my ambitions, stayed silent. I realized in that moment that I was completely on my own, and that my family would never believe in me or support my dreams. That night, I made a decision that would change the trajectory of my entire life. I packed everything I owned into my old Honda Civic, withdrew the $15,000 I had saved from freelancing, and drove straight to Florida. I had no contacts there, no job prospects, and no safety net. But I knew I needed to get as far away from the negativity as possible. I was determined to prove my parents wrong, not just for my own satisfaction, but to show them exactly how wrong they had been about their low-life son. I arrived in Tampa with nothing but my clothes, my laptop, my business plan, and an unshakable determination to succeed. The first few months in Florida were incredibly challenging. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood for $400 a month, furnished it with items from thrift stores and yard sales, and lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches to keep expenses minimal. I spent every waking hour refining my CRM software, reaching out to potential customers, and building the foundation for what I hoped would become a successful business. I had no social life, no entertainment budget, and no safety net, but I had never been more motivated in my life. Every morning, I woke up thinking about my dad calling me a lowlife, and it fueled my determination to prove him spectacularly wrong. My breakthrough came about 6 months after moving to Florida. I had been networking relentlessly, attending every business meetup and chamber of commerce event I could find, always carrying business cards and demo materials for my CRM system. At a small business expo in Orlando, I met Patricia Gonzalez, who owned a rapidly growing landscaping company with 12 employees. She had been struggling with keeping track of customer information, scheduling, and billing using a combination of spreadsheets and paper records. When I demonstrated how my system could streamline all of her operations into one integrated platform, she immediately saw the value and became my first major customer with a $2,000 monthly contract. Patricia's enthusiasm for the system led to referrals to other small business owners in her network. Within 3 months, I had signed 8 more customers, and by the end of 2008, I had 23 active clients paying between $500 and $3,000 per month for my CRM system. I was generating over $25,000 in monthly recurring revenue and more. Importantly, I was solving real problems for real businesses. My customers were seeing improved efficiency, better customer retention, and increased profits directly attributable to implementing my system. Word of mouth began to spread, and I started receiving inquiries from businesses I had never contacted directly. In 2009, I made the decision to incorporate officially as Tech Solutions Dynamics and hired my first employee, a talented developer named Kevin Chen, who had recently graduated from University of Central Florida. Kevin shared my vision for creating technology solutions that could level the playing field for small businesses competing against larger corporations with bigger budgets and dedicated IT departments. Together, we expanded the functionality of the CRM system and began developing additional modules for inventory management, financial reporting, and marketing automation. We were building a comprehensive business management platform that could scale with growing companies. By 2010, we had grown to 57 active customers and $87,000 in monthly recurring revenue. I hired 2 more developers, a customer success manager named Amanda Rodriguez, and a sales specialist named David Thompson. We moved into a proper office space in downtown Tampa, and I began to feel like we were building something truly significant. The business was growing organically through referrals and word of mouth, which meant our customers were genuinely satisfied with our products and services. We maintained extremely high customer retention rates because we were solving real problems and providing exceptional support. During this period, I maintained minimal contact with my family back in Ohio. My parents would occasionally call, usually when they needed something or when there was family news to share, but they rarely asked about my business or showed any interest in what I was accomplishing. When they did ask, I would give vague answers about doing well with my computer, business, but I never shared specific details about our growth or success. Part of me wanted to prove them wrong immediately, but I was also determined to build something so undeniably successful that they couldn't dismiss or minimize my achievements when I eventually revealed the full scope of what I had built. The major turning point came in 2011 when we were approached by Marcus Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company that wanted to implement our system across their entire organization with over 300 employees. This was our first enterprise-level contract, worth $15,000 per month, and it validated that our platform could scale to handle much larger operations than we had originally envisioned. The successful implementation at Marcus Industries led to contracts with several other larger companies, and by the end of 2011, we were generating over $200,000 in monthly recurring revenue. 2012 was when everything really exploded. We had refined our platform to the point where it was genuinely superior to many much more expensive alternatives on the market. We offered better functionality, more intuitive interfaces, superior customer support, and significantly lower costs than our major competitors. We began investing heavily in marketing and sales, hiring experienced professionals who could help us reach larger markets and compete for bigger contracts. We also started developing vertical-specific versions of our platform tailored for industries, like healthcare, legal services, and professional consulting, which opened up entirely new market segments. By late 2012, we had grown to 43 employees, over 400 active customers, and were generating $450,000 in monthly recurring revenue. We had moved into a larger office space, implemented profit-sharing programs for all employees, and I was finally able to pay myself a substantial salary after years of reinvesting everything back into the business. More importantly, we were being recognized in industry publications as an innovative company that was disrupting traditional approaches to business management software. We won several awards for customer satisfaction and product innovation, and I was invited to speak at technology conferences about entrepreneurship and software development. The real validation came in early 2013 when we were approached by 3 different private equity firms interested in acquiring Tech Solutions Dynamics. The initial offers ranged from $8 million to $12 million, which would have made me wealthy, beyond anything I had ever imagined when I was living on ramen noodles in that tiny studio apartment. However, I wasn't ready to sell because I could see that we were still in the early stages of what the company could become. We were growing at over 40% annually, expanding into new markets and developing new products that could potentially multiply our revenue several times over. Instead of selling, I decided to accept a growth investment from Pinnacle Ventures, a respected private equity firm that specialized in technology companies. They invested $5 million for a 25% stake in the company, valuing Tech Solutions Dynamics at $20 million. The investment allowed us to accelerate our growth plans, hire top-tier talent, and expand our marketing efforts nationally. More importantly, it provided external validation that what we had built was genuinely valuable and had enormous potential for continued growth. 2014 and 2015 were years of explosive expansion. We grew from 400 customers to over 200 customers, launched our platform in Canada and the United Kingdom, and expanded our team to over 80 employees across multiple offices. We developed mobile applications, enhanced our security features, and integrated with dozens of third-party applications that our customers were already using. Our annual revenue exceeded $8 million, and we were being mentioned in the same conversations as much larger, more established software companies. Industry analysts were predicting that we could become one of the dominant players in the small to medium business software market within the next 5 years. During this period of rapid growth, I maintained my policy of minimal contact with my family. They knew I was living in Florida and working with computers, but they had no idea about the scale of what I had built. Occasionally, my sister Sarah would ask more detailed questions about my work, and I could tell she was curious about why. I seemed to be doing well financially, but I always deflected with vague answers. I was waiting for the right moment to reveal everything, and I knew that moment would come when the success was so undeniable that even my father couldn't dismiss it. That moment arrived in late 2015 when Microsoft approached us about a potential acquisition. They had been tracking our growth and were impressed with our customer retention rates, our innovative features, and our position in the market. The initial conversations were exploratory, but it quickly became clear that they were serious about acquiring Tech Solutions Dynamics to enhance their own business software offerings. The preliminary valuation discussions were in the range of $35 million to $45 million, which would have made my personal share worth over $25 million after accounting for the private equity stake and employee stock options. Ultimately, I decided not to sell to Microsoft because I believed we could achieve even greater success as an independent company. We were growing rapidly, we had a strong competitive position, and I enjoyed the challenge of building something from scratch. However, the Microsoft interest generated significant media attention and industry recognition. We were featured in major business publications, I was interviewed on several technology podcasts, and Tech Solutions Dynamics was recognized as one of the fastest-growing private companies in Florida. By 2016, our annual revenue had reached $12 million. We employed over 120 people, and we were serving customers in 15 countries. I had personally accumulated wealth that I never could have imagined when my father called me a lowlife and kicked me out of the house. I owned a beautiful home in an exclusive Tampa neighborhood, drove luxury cars, and had investment portfolios that were generating substantial passive income. More importantly, I had built a company that was providing meaningful employment for over 100 people and helping thousands of small businesses operate more efficiently and profitably. This was when I decided it was time to reconnect with my family and reveal the full extent of what I had accomplished. I hadn't spoken to my parents in over a year, and they had no idea about the media coverage or the success of Tech Solutions Dynamics. As far as they knew, I was still struggling with my computer business in Florida. I was ready to show them exactly how wrong they had been about their low-life son. I started by calling my sister Sarah, who had always been the most reasonable member of the family. When I told her about the company, the revenue figures, the employees, and the media recognition, she was absolutely shocked. She had assumed I was making a modest living doing freelance computer work, not running a multi-million-dollar company that was being covered in national business publications. She immediately wanted to know why I had never told the family about my success, and I explained that I wanted to wait until the achievement was so significant that it couldn't be dismissed or minimized. Sarah convinced me to visit Ohio for Christmas, 2016, which would be my first time home since leaving nearly 10 years earlier. She promised to help facilitate conversations with our parents and to provide support if things became tense. I agreed, but I was determined to do this on my own terms. I wasn't going home as the family failure-seeking approval. I was returning as a successful entrepreneur who had built something remarkable despite their lack of support and belief. The Christmas visit was surreal. My parents seemed genuinely happy to see me, and they were curious about my life in Florida. However, they still seemed to view me as their struggling son who was finally visiting home after chasing his computer dreams for too long. My dad made several comments about how I looked good and seemed to be doing well, implying that maybe I was finally getting serious about life. My mom asked if I was dating anyone and whether I was thinking about settling down and starting a family now that I was in my 30s. On Christmas Eve, I decided it was time to reveal everything. I had prepared a comprehensive presentation showing the growth of Tech Solutions Dynamics, our customer base, our revenue figures, our employee count, and our industry recognition. I also brought copies of the business magazine articles that had featured our company and my personal story. When the family gathered in the living room after dinner, I announced that I had something important to share about my work in Florida. Team Audio began by explaining how I had built Tech Solutions Dynamics from nothing into a company serving over 1,500 customers across multiple countries. I showed them our revenue growth charts, our employee headcount progression, and examples of the large enterprise clients we were serving. I explained how we had raised investment capital, how we had been approached for acquisition by major technology companies, and how we had been recognized as one of the fastest-growing private companies in the southeastern United States. The reaction was everything I had hoped for and more. My parents sat in stunned silence as I walked through the presentation, clearly struggling to process that their low-life son had built a company worth tens of millions of dollars. My dad's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, confusion, and what I could only describe as dawning realization of how spectacularly wrong he had been about my potential. My mom kept asking questions about the revenue figures, seeming unable to believe that the numbers were real. When I finished the presentation, there was a long silence before my dad finally spoke. He said, "Marcus, I had no idea. This is incredible. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished." But I could hear the uncertainty in his voice, and I knew he was struggling with the fact that everything he had said about my dreams being unrealistic had been proven completely wrong. My mom was more emotional, apologizing for not being more supportive, and expressing regret that they had missed out on celebrating my success over the years. However, I wasn't finished. I had spent 10 years building up to this moment, and I needed to address the way they had treated me when I was starting my journey. I reminded them of the conversation when my dad had called me a lowlife and told me to leave the house. I explained how their lack of support and belief had motivated me to prove them wrong, but also how much it had hurt to feel rejected by my own family when I needed encouragement most. I told them that while I was grateful for the motivation their dismissal had provided, I wished they could have been part of the journey instead of obstacles I had to overcome. My dad's response was a mixture of defensive justification and genuine remorse. He explained that he had been worried about my financial security and that his criticism had come from a place of concern rather than malice. He said he had never imagined that my computer hobby could become something so significant, and that he regretted not being more supportive of my dreams. However, I could tell that part of him was still struggling to accept that he had been so fundamentally wrong about my potential and my chosen path. The visit ended on a positive note, with my parents expressing genuine pride in what I had accomplished and asking to stay more connected to my life and my business. They wanted to visit Florida to see the offices and meet my employees, and they began telling their friends and neighbors about their successful entrepreneur son. It felt good to finally have their recognition and approval, but it was also somewhat hollow because I had already achieved everything without their support or belief. 2017 and 2018 were years of continued growth and expansion for Tech Solutions Dynamics. We reached $18 million in annual revenue, expanded our team to over 150 employees, and launched advanced artificial intelligence features that set us apart from competitors. We opened offices in Chicago and Austin, and we were being recognized as one of the most innovative companies in the business software space. I was invited to speak at major industry conferences, serve on advisory boards for other technology companies, and mentor other entrepreneurs who were building software businesses. During this period, my relationship with my family gradually improved. My parents would call regularly to check on the business and ask about new developments. They started following technology news and business publications so they could understand the industry better and stay informed about trends that might affect my company. They were genuinely proud of what I had accomplished, and they made efforts to make up for their earlier lack of support by being enthusiastic cheerleaders for everything I was doing. However, the real test of how much had changed came in early 2019 when my dad lost his job. The manufacturing company he had worked for over 20 years was acquired by a larger corporation, and they eliminated his regional manager position as part of consolidating operations. At 58 years old, he was struggling to find comparable employment, and their savings were quickly depleting as they tried to maintain their lifestyle without his income. My mom's part-time bookkeeping work wasn't nearly enough to cover their mortgage, utilities, and other expenses. When Sarah called to tell me about my dad's job loss, she was clearly worried about our parents' financial situation. They were too proud to ask for help directly, but she wanted me to know that they were facing serious financial difficulties and might lose their house if my dad couldn't find work soon. She wasn't directly asking me to help them financially, but the implication was clear that I was the only family member with the resources to prevent them from facing bankruptcy or foreclosure. This presented me with a complex emotional situation. On one hand, these were my parents, and I didn't want to see them lose their home or face financial ruin in their later years. On the other hand, I couldn't forget how they had treated me when I was starting my business and needed support. The irony was overwhelming. The son they had called a lowlife and kicked out for pursuing unrealistic dreams was now the only person who could save them from financial disaster. I decided to help them, but I wanted to do it in a way that would drive home the full magnitude of how wrong they had been about my potential. Instead of simply giving them money or paying their bills, I offered my dad a position at Tech Solutions Dynamics as a senior business development consultant. The position would involve leveraging his decades of experience in manufacturing and business operations to help us better serve clients in industrial sectors. The salary I offered was $85,000 annually, which was more than he had been making at his previous job, plus full benefits and stock options that could potentially be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars if the company continued growing. When I made the offer during a phone call, there was a long silence before my dad responded. I could hear the emotion in his voice as he thanked me for the opportunity and expressed how grateful he was for my willingness to help the family during a difficult time. But I could also sense his discomfort with the role reversal. The son he had dismissed as a low-life dreamer was now offering him employment and financial security. The conversation was awkward, but necessary, and it represented a complete inversion of the family power dynamics that had existed when I was younger. My dad accepted the position and moved to Florida in the summer of 2019 to start working at Tech Solutions Dynamics. It was strange having him in the office, seeing him interact with my employees, and witnessing firsthand the scope of what I had built. He worked hard and contributed valuable insights based on his decades of business experience, but I could tell he was constantly amazed by the scale and sophistication of the operation. He would make comments about how impressive the offices were, how talented the employees were, and how much larger the business was than he had ever imagined. Having my dad work for me provided daily reminders of how dramatically our relationship had changed. Employees who knew our family history would sometimes make jokes about the boss hiring his father, not realizing the complex emotional dynamics involved. During team meetings, my dad would refer to me as Mr. Martinez in front of other employees, maintaining professional boundaries, but also acknowledging the authority structure that placed his former low-life son in charge of his career and financial security. The arrangement worked well professionally, and my dad proved to be a valuable addition to the team. His experience and business acumen helped us secure several large manufacturing clients, and his work ethic and professional demeanor earned respect from other employees. However, the personal dynamics remained complex. During family conversations, he would express gratitude for the opportunity and pride in what I had accomplished, but I could sense underlying discomfort with his dependence on the son he had once dismissed so harshly. 2020 brought unprecedented challenges with the COVID-19 pandemic, but it also created massive opportunities for companies like Tech Solutions Dynamics, as businesses worldwide were forced to adapt to remote work and digital operations. Demand for our cloud-based management platform exploded. We signed more new customers in the first 6 months of 2020 than we had in any previous full year, and our revenue grew by over 60% as companies desperately needed tools to manage distributed workforces and maintain operational efficiency. By the end of 2020, Tech Solutions Dynamics was generating over $28 million in annual revenue, employed over 200 people, and was serving customers in 22 countries. We had become one of the dominant players in the small to medium business software market, exactly as industry analysts had predicted years earlier. More importantly, we had proven that our platform could scale to handle massive increases in demand while maintaining the high levels of customer satisfaction that had fueled our organic growth. This growth attracted attention from larger technology companies interested in acquisition opportunities. In late 2020, we received serious acquisition offers from Salesforce, Oracle, and Amazon Web Services, with valuations ranging from $150 million to $180 million. For the first time, I seriously considered selling the company. I was 45 years old. I had achieved more success than I had ever dreamed possible, and I was ready to consider new challenges and opportunities. After extensive deliberation and consultation with advisors, I decided to accept Amazon's offer of $175 million for Tech Solutions Dynamics. The acquisition would allow our platform to reach even more customers through Amazon's massive distribution network, provide our employees with stock options in one of the world's most valuable companies, and give me the financial freedom to pursue new ventures or philanthropic interests. After accounting for employee stock options and the private equity stake, my personal share of the acquisition proceeds was approximately $127 million. The acquisition was completed in March 2021, making me one of the wealthiest individuals in Florida and validating everything I had believed about the potential for technology to transform business operations. The financial outcome was beyond anything I could have imagined when I was eating ramen noodles in that tiny studio apartment, driven by determination to prove my father wrong about my potential. I had built a company worth nearly $200 million from nothing but an idea, a laptop, and an unshakable belief in my vision. The most satisfying part of the acquisition wasn't the money, though. It was the phone call I made to my family to share the news. When I told my parents that Tech Solutions Dynamics had been acquired by Amazon for $175 million and that my personal share was over $125 million, the silence on the phone was deafening. My dad finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper, saying, "Marcus, I don't know what to say. This is incredible. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so sorry for ever doubting what you could accomplish." My mom was crying as she told me how amazed she was by what I had achieved and how grateful she was that I had persevered despite their lack of initial support. Sarah was ecstatic, immediately wanting to plan a celebration and telling me how she had always known I would be successful even when our parents were skeptical. The conversation was emotional and cathartic, representing the final validation of everything I had worked toward for over 15 years. Following the acquisition, I retained my dad as a consultant for the transition process, ensuring he would continue to have income and purpose during the integration with Amazon. I also established trust funds for my parents and sister, providing them with financial security for the rest of their lives. However, I made it clear that this generosity came with the expectation that they would never again dismiss someone's dreams or potential based on their own limited understanding of what was possible. The irony of the situation was perfect. The son they had called a lowlife for pursuing unrealistic dreams had not only proven them spectacularly wrong, but had also become their financial benefactor and the source of their security in their later years. The family dynamics had been completely reversed, with the former disappointment now in the position of providing for everyone else. It was the ultimate vindication of my decision to leave Ohio and pursue my entrepreneurial dreams despite their lack of support. Looking back on this 15-year journey, I'm grateful for both the success I achieved and the motivation provided by my family's initial rejection. Their lack of belief in my potential created a burning desire to prove them wrong that sustained me through years of challenges, setbacks, and uncertainty. Without that motivation, I might have been satisfied with a comfortable but unremarkable career as a software developer for someone else's company. The experience taught me valuable lessons about perseverance, self-belief, and the importance of surrounding yourself with people who support your dreams rather than dismiss them. It also demonstrated that success is often the best revenge, not because it allows you to hurt those who doubted you, but because it proves that their limitations don't have to become your limitations. My parents' inability to envision success outside traditional paths didn't prevent me from creating something extraordinary. It just meant they missed the opportunity to be part of the journey. Today, I'm using my wealth and experience to mentor other entrepreneurs who are facing skepticism from family members or struggling to build businesses in industries their loved ones don't understand. I've established a foundation that provides funding and support for technology entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds, and I regularly speak about the importance of believing in your vision even when others can't see it. My story has become an example of how rejection and criticism can be transformed into motivation for extraordinary achievement. My relationship with my family has evolved into something healthy and supportive, built on mutual respect and understanding of what I accomplished despite their initial lack of faith. My dad often tells people about his successful entrepreneur son, conveniently omitting the part where he called me a lowlife and kicked me out of the house for pursuing my dreams. My mom has become one of my biggest cheerleaders, following technology, news, and bragging about my achievements to anyone who will listen. Sarah has always been proud of my success and frequently asks for advice about her own career decisions. The best part of this whole story is that I'm not done yet. At 46 years old, with complete financial freedom and proven experience building successful companies, I'm exploring new opportunities in artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and biotechnology. The boy who was dismissed as a lowlife dreamer has become a serial entrepreneur with the resources and knowledge to tackle even bigger challenges and create even more significant impact. Sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting the people who doubted you. It's becoming so successful that their doubts become irrelevant and their opinions become meaningless. My father's words calling me a lowlife motivated me to build a $175 million company, create jobs for hundreds of people, and achieve financial independence beyond most people's wildest dreams. I'd say that's revenge served pretty effectively,